Shalom and welcome to this live stream from Israel for Fred, or the abbreviation is MIFF. It's Europe's largest non-religious, non-partisan, pro-Israel membership organization. Maybe you don't understand the name. It is With Israel for Peace. Usually we do these live streams in Norwegian, since we have more than 11,000 members in Norway, where we were first founded in the 1970s. But we also have members in Denmark, Iceland, and other countries. And because of these unique guests that we are having today, we do the whole live stream in English. Joining me in a moment will be these two interesting voices. Arsen Ostrovsky, to the right, is the CIO of the International Legal Forum and board member of Sharaka. He's one of the most influential Israeli voices in the English-speaking Twitter choir, and he is a friend of MIFF from former visits to Norway as a speaker and on MIFF tours to Israel. Joining us in the conversation is Dr. Majeed Alsara, an Emirati citizen and academic at University of Dubai and a founding member of the Sharaka. Sharaka, which means partnership, was founded by young leaders from Israel and the Gulf in order to turn the vision of people-to-people peace into reality. Even though MIFF communicates mostly in Norwegian and in Danish, we do have a video archive, both on Facebook and YouTube, with interesting lectures in English. In the past years, and also the last years during the corona lockdowns, we have had high-ranking Israeli politicians and diplomats, highly respected journalists and political commentators, and renowned authors speaking to us either live in conferences in Norway or through Zoom. And have a look around after you listen to this interesting talk to see what more you can listen to from our archive. We are joined now by Dr. Majeed Alsara and Arsen Ostrovsky. Hello, really good that you could join us. And this is the first time I think my organization in more than 40 years make a talk with an Arab and a Jew together. So great to have you. And,
thank you.
And Majeed, how was your love for the Jewish people in general and for Israel born? Tell us the story.
Well, actually, this is really, we're living historic times. And now, since you have mentioned that it's the first time to host an Arab and an Israeli, I want to tell you that from this platform, we all stand together. We all have commonalities, similarities. We are no longer apart. We are brothers and sisters, and we share the same values. We share the same future and destiny. So honestly speaking, I mean, Israel is a very historic and a very lovely place. And what made me actually love it even more is the people. So to me, the criteria to love a place is the people. So the people we have seen there, the diversity of the people. You see Arabs, you see Jews from different places in the world, you know, it's like a mixture, a coexistence heaven, you know, to see all these people living together peacefully and welcoming us, especially, you know, when the Abrahamic Accords took place and it occurred. You know, everybody was excited, everybody was happy. Not just from the UAE, but from the whole Gulf. People from Israel started, you know, communicating with the people. And I think that's the secret, because people are eager for peace, you know, to build brighter future, to live together and, you know, to get to know each other. Yeah. You know, we didn't know anything about Israel for a very long time. So this is the chance, and it's a very positive and good chance.
Yeah. And even though you met Arsen on your first visit to Israel, you still love Israel.
Oh yes, of course. Oh,
Arsen,
I will always do.
Please tell Arsen. Please tell me how you met up with Majeed and how you look on this new relationship with the Emirates.
So first of all, Conrad, thank you for having myself and my dear friend Majid on, and indeed for incredible work that you and MIFF do, which is one of the most wonderful organizations, not just supporting Israel, but also promoting peace. So thank you for all that you do, first and foremost. I have to share something, Majeed. I'm not sure if you know, but you are the first Emirati that I met in person.
Wow.
I don't think
I'm flattered. I'm so flattered.
I don't think I told you this. So Majid and I met in Jerusalem just this past December. Majid was there with a Sharaka organization, which both him and I are now very much blessed to share in common as board members, with Majid managing the UAE office as well. And Sharaka we can talk about more later, but it's an incredible organization of civil society activists that really came together after the Abrahamic Accords to try and build these bonds and bridges between people of Israel and the Gulf. So what happened, Sharaka in December brought the first ever delegation from the UAE and Bahrain to Israel. Majid was part of this delegation. They saw President Rivlin, they went to Yad Vashem, which is of course a very central part of their visit, and even lit a candle at the Western Wall during Hanukkah, which was, I'm sure Majid can talk about, something incredibly special. But I ended up meeting Majid and a delegation in Jerusalem one evening. I went there for dinner to meet with them and the historic King David Hotel. And Majid and I, you had communicated online, on WhatsApp, on Twitter, but hadn't met in person. And this was still, remember, this is still COVID, 2020, still COVID time. And I have to tell you, I wasn't sure. How do I say hello? How do I introduce ourselves? How would it work? Is it an elbow bump? Is it a hello? And if you remember, Majid, the very first thing, we hugged.
Yes.
We hugged.
Yes.
And I'll tell you why, for me, that's so amazing, is that from that moment, it has been the most natural, the most free-flowing, the most honest and sincere, not just relationship, but real friendship.
Yes.
It's not just a strategic relationship, it's a real friendship. We are friends, we are family. Majid is always welcome here in Israel. This is also his family, his home, as we are, I'm sure, in UAE, as that's been made also clear. So it's been the most natural thing. And it's also made me wonder, why wasn't it like this before? Why did it take so long? But you know what? It's better late than never. We are living in historic times. And with each occasion, we are saying, this is historic. This is historic. And in a year that has been that was defined by so many challenges, so much turmoil around the world, these Abrahamic Accords have really been this amazing beacon of hope and inspiration and light, and something for us to look forward to the future.
Yeah. Yesterday, I interviewed the Norwegian ambassador to Israel, and he was extremely positive about the Abraham Accords, actually, and he was just waiting for the next Arab or Muslim country to normalize relations with Israel.
We all are. The more the merrier.
Yes.
The more the merrier.
Yes.
Majid, maybe you could tell us a little bit more about your background. You're connected to the university in Dubai, is it?
So apparently I was teaching at the American University of Sharjah, and I do a lot of advising, for policies, legislations, and international law. My background is law, so I'm originally a lawyer, just like my friend and brother here, Arsen, and more specifically in international law, and international relations and transactions. I did teaching, I did consultancy, I did a lot of projects, for public and private sectors. I was really exposed to a lot of people from around the world. So if you gentlemen, and of course you're more than welcome to visit UAE and Dubai. You would see Dubai as an international hub. You will find Emiratis, you will find people from the Gulf, Arabs. You will find a lot of people from Europe, from the US, from different parts of the world. So and by the way, this is a great example for coexistence. So I was exposed to a lot of people. You get to know a lot of cultures. You get to meet a lot of people, which makes you more enthusiastic, you know, to get to know more, you know, to explore more cultures, more people. It makes you open to, you know, to different mentalities, different mindsets. So, and of course, I am based in Dubai. Abu Dhabi, though, is only 1.5 hours away. So I would be between Abu Dhabi and Dubai. I have studied, of course, in Abu Dhabi University. I have studied in Dubai. I studied also, I did, one of my studies was about public policy, which was done at London School of Economics and Political Science, which is based in London, of course. So you see, I try to gather information from all around, you know, try to be exposed to more mindsets and more cultures, which I believe it's very essential and necessary nowadays with this globalization and openness to the whole world.
Yeah. Before we dig more into the specifics of the Abraham Accords and this new international relations, I asked my Twitter followers if they had any questions for you guys. And
Yes.
One of the questions is, which beach is better, Dubai or Tel Aviv?
Majid, you've been to both, so
yes,
you can choose this. I have not, so I love Tel Aviv. I live in Tel Aviv, but
yes.
the beach in Dubai will be one of the first things I see when I go there after I've coffee with you, Majid. But I'm going to let you answer this one because you've seen both. So you can
okay, so
very diplomatically.
That's a tough question. Okay, no, to be honest, look, that was one of my answers. So they told me, what did you love the most about Tel Aviv? And my first thing was people. Secondly was the beaches. You know, I love the beach over there. However, if you would ask me which one is better, I would tell you both. Okay, but
I told you he's a diplomat, Conrad. I told you he's a
diplomat. However, like for swimming, if you want to swim, you know, and enjoy the sun and so on, Dubai is amazing. But if you want to surf, if you want to enjoy the you know, the clarity and the beautiful water, then, and especially, by the way, surfing, so that would be Tel Aviv. Yeah. And again, you could do both. You know, you could do surfing over there, then you have to come here and relax. And again, look, I still find it similar. A lot of people asked me, and I told them it's very similar to Dubai. Arsen, of course, you're gonna test this when you come to Dubai. And look, it's again, I think it's an extension of each other, you know. So my answer is both. Honestly, my answer is both.
Conrad, sir, can I tell you what made me understand how similar we actually are?
Yeah.
This is a very small anecdote. Majid, so that night when I met you and the group, Majid, they were having dinner. So I went to join them for dinner. Mm-hmm. And as I sat down with them, there was the group was about 12 people, men, women, Bahrain, UAE, from across the political spectrum, different fields. And we saw them across the table. They were yelling and arguing and disagreeing in the most sincere and polite way, just so animated and passionate. And in between, asking each other can you please pass the bread? Can you pass the water or pass the food? And what occurred to me, what hit me, was they are exactly like us. This could be a Shabbat dinner table anywhere in Israel, at any Jewish house across the world. We argue, we debate, we agree, we disagree, we eat, we bond, we hug, we love, but there is so much similarity between us. And that's something that really struck me from the beginning, and also I think one of the many, many reasons why we have connected on such a real and personal and an emotional level.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Why do you think that the normalization came in August, September last year? Because the friendship and the relations have been there more or less undercover for many years. What were the most important factors bringing this change?
Okay, so me or Arsen?
Yeah, both of you. You can start.
Okay. Okay. So apparently, I would say the relation, like, I wouldn't call it undercover, but if we think about it, for example, it has a lot of aspects. Okay, so economy, security, and so many others like trade, you know, and freedom of skies and so on. So if you would ask me, for example, and I remember this question was addressed to one of I think the commander-in-chief of Dubai Police back then. And they told him, if you knew that there is a bomb in Israel, would you report it? So he was, of course I would, even though we don't have relations, but I have to report it. This is my duty. This is my job. And to save lives, to save innocent people, you see. So let's say diplomatic relations were not there, but you know, sharing common enemies, sharing same values were always on the table. We have seen what happened after 9/11, for example, where the whole world united together to combat terrorism and to you know, overcome all these kind of ideologies and so on. So it doesn't matter if I do have relation with you or not, but we have to be united to combat the killing and the extermination of innocent lives and destroying civilization, destroying humanity. So maybe again, you know, the world was suffering in 2020, you know, from the beginning of the year until August. You know, we all have been hearing bad news, you know, conflicts, COVID cases, and the spread of the pandemic all over the world. So, and I believe that was the cloud. I don't know. We have a saying like in our culture, they say, "Oh, that's a cloud of summer." So normally in summer you don't. I mean, at least in my region, I don't know about you know, other regions, but in summer normally there are no clouds. But if you see a cloud, they're like, "Oh wow, that's hope." You know, maybe it will rain. You know, so I believe that was a cloud of mercy, a cloud of rain. To make people happy, you know, especially at that time. And this is on the social aspect. However, that was really critical time. We have seen how other regimes, you know, were supporting terrorism. They were supporting all the policies against humanity, against coexistence, and against, you know, tolerance. We have seen it, like so many regimes around the world. You know, the Turkish one, the Iranian one. You have the organizations in Yemen, organizations in the Levant region. So again, we share common enemies, common threats. We have to stand together, and we have to work together step by step, you know, and to build really a very solid Middle East, not the one we used to know in the past, but a very positive and hopeful and very, you know, successful one.
Yeah.
Conrad, I would add to that, first of all, that I agree with every single word that Majeed said. But I would also perhaps further suggest a few more factors. I think, first of all, a great deal credit needs to be here given to the previous US administration, who I think understood that the Middle East was very much in a quagmire. There wasn't any progress happening. So they understood that they had to look outside the box. And, you know, Einstein's famous definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And that very much defined the Middle East foreign policy for decades. So first of all, they understood the regional geopolitics, how that was shifting, and that they saw the opportunity there. As Majeed alluded to, we definitely have a number of common threats. First and foremost, of course, is that of Iran. Iran is not only a existential threat to the state of Israel, but very much also a threat to the nations of the Gulf and the region, and the primary, I believe, destabilizing force in the area. But it wasn't just, I think, a concern of shared common threat, but also common opportunities, because I think both the UAE and Israel also understood and saw, as did our leadership, the merit in having closer ties, in having bilateral relations, in cooperating on COVID and infrastructure. And we've seen that since, you know, the number of MOUs the number of agreements. It hasn't been gradual, it has been turbo pace. Just it's been impossible to almost keep up the flights, the agreements. So I think both nations also understood that, you know what, there is an imperative and national security and bilateral and trade incentive for us to have these closer relations, which we had for many years. They were building up. It did not happen overnight. But now it was time to be completely in the open. The only other thing I would perhaps allude to is the UAE ambassador to the United States, Al Taiba, wonderful, wonderful diplomat. He wrote a very important op-ed, opinion piece in Israeli paper in I think about June or so of last year. And there was also a time here in Israel we're very much talking about applying Israeli sovereignty to Judea and Samaria, to the West Bank, what the Western community calls annexation. And what he wrote in this opinion piece was essentially that if Israel does proceed with that plan, it may impair further agreements and peace deals and normalization agreements with Arab countries, with the Gulf. But if Israel were to suspend that, then that would really open the doors. And I think that message was understood both here in Israel, certainly in the United States, and that was, I think, the final sort of push that you saw the agreement really follow after that and really open the door to Bahrain, Sudan, Morocco now, and I should also add Kosovo, by the way, majority Muslim country in Europe as well. So that really, I think, opened the floodgates, I would say the floodgates of peace. And I think we've seen the fruits of that, and it's been a wonderful thing.
Yeah, thanks a lot for that analysis, both of you. So obviously in Jerusalem, Iran is looked upon as an existential threat. Is that a view that is also shared by the leadership in United Arab Emirates to them? Or I don't know how has the historical relations been between the Emirates and Iran?
Well, you see, we have seen a lot of statements lately, between officials about the diplomatic relation between UAE and Iran. Maybe it's not at the best, okay, but on the other hand, there is a positive side about it. So again, it didn't stop the trade between UAE and Iran. It didn't stop the economy from growing between the countries. We have Iranian people visiting UAE with no restrictions, and I believe maybe vice versa too, if somebody wants to go to Iran. However, if you would ask me, there is no clarity in the policies that have been used, and I'm talking about the positive side, from the Iranian regime. So normally any government that would be working so hard for the sake of their nation, they would have two types, like foreign policy and domestic policy. So we all have seen how the pandemic hit Iran so bad. The main focus on for example, the economic revenues have not been so beneficial on the domestic policies and on the domestic needs, of Iran. Therefore, even though we are in the same region, so we should have learned from each other, work together, hold hands and combat any other threats and so on. But we have not seen this intention, from the Iranian regime. I don't know why, to be honest. Because normally the infrastructure, I've seen a lot of reports, telling us about the situation in Iran, which is really bad, like completely bad for the people over there. And again, is it failure in some parts of the policies? Yes, because now they're of course they do have the project of the nuclear power and so on, but there should be a clarity and feasible studies about what could be beneficial for the people. Is it a peaceful use of nuclear energy? Is it not? Is there any kinds of planning? Because the statements of the the officials from Iran say something totally different. We have seen all the threats into Israel and to the Gulf in general. And out of a sudden they say, yes, we need to negotiate and sit on the table to talk. And on the other hand, they would have some statements, against whatever they have said. So I think it's an issue of trust here. It's an issue of no clarity of the direction of their policies. It's the same thing on a personal level. If you have in a relationship, a friendship with a person, and they're always, changing their minds, they don't know what to do. One day they want to go here, the other day, no, I want to go north, and then no, I want to go south, and then. It's actually not the most appropriate way, to run a country. But anyway, we need to see more facts on the table. I remember again, MBS, His Highness Prince Mohammed bin Salman, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, where he actually stated, and he said, I don't mind, I would love to have good relations with Iran. However, it's really hard to the whole system, was based on revolutionary ideologies, and it's not really from the year 1979 or maybe 80 until today. So it's really a matter of trust. This is what he clearly stated, and I support that statement even today.
Yeah.
If I could just add one thing on the Iran issue, and I think this is also very important, that right now, there's obviously a lot of discussion about the US administration and the European powers re-engaging with Iran on the JCPOA nuclear deal. But here is a major difference. 5 years ago, when they were talking about entering into the deal, it was essentially only Israel that was speaking out and warning about the dangers of the JCPOA deal and the dangers of an empowered and emboldened Iran. Today, it is not only Israel. We're seeing the Gulf nations, we're seeing UAE, Bahrain, even the Saudis are all cautioning the US administration, as well as the leadership in Europe, about the dangers of Iran and about the concerns of re-engaging on the nuclear deal. This is something that was not the case before. So in many ways, I think the threat of Iran is also something that is an instrumental factor in uniting Israel and the Gulf nations, and we're seeing that practically today. And I think that's shaping very much in terms of how the Western nations, the EU and the US proceed on this very important issue.
Yeah, we have to close soon, but now the two of you are building trust together in an organization called Sharaka.
Sharaka.
Yes. It's an Arab word that means partnership, I understand.
Yes. Yeah. Correct. And by the way, just to proceed, it was not chosen by Arabs, like it was not chosen by us. So the Israeli side, they chose it. They chose Sharaka, and I really salute them for that.
That's nice. Tell us quickly about it. What's the goal of the organization?
Well, I remember, publishing also about the main, objectives about Sharaka. We published it all. We worked on it, so as a board members. Sharaka is an organization that builds, first of all, it builds bridges and trust amongst people from the Gulf and Israel, vice versa, of course. And we need to raise the awareness, to combat anti-Semitism, to aware people about the Holocaust, about the land of Israel, about the Gulf and the relations, and how to set a positive model about peace, amongst people. So this is a very unique model, and look, any country in the world, they would have relation with each other. People can travel freely, from one country to another. But in Israel, we have seen how, maybe in the beginning, Arsen mentioned it. We didn't shake hands or maybe do the Corona, elbow, whatever. We hugged, and that was like really tense, as if we know each other for a long time. So we need to show the whole world how beautiful this piece is, and how beautiful the connection amongst people is really essential. And this is the key to help and build better future, not just for us, because we, of course, when I saw Arsen, we hugged and we had a very good time, but I'm pretty sure our children would do the same 100%. I would see my children playing with Arsens, and by the way, it happened, and sorry.
Inshallah, my friend.
Inshallah, Be'ezrat Hashem, inshallah. So yeah, and I believe again, Sharaka is a very essential and valuable organization nowadays. We have seen how we all stood together, and our visit, for example, to Yad Vashem was really completely touching. Personally, I kept hearing about the Holocaust. I believe in the Holocaust. Even though so many people did not study about the Holocaust historically, at school or so on, I did my research and read about it. But again, look, when you do your research, when you read about it, it's totally different than visiting a museum, and seeing the real suffering of the people. The whole world need to know, not just the Gulf, not Arabs only, the whole world. They need to see this. It was a genocide, and never again, as we all say, and we need to aware people about this. We need to show people that we all, it's not just Jews, it's Jews, Arabs, all standing together. We don't look at any differences that we have. On the other hand, we look for similarities. We look for common shared values together. And we try to strengthen these values and to build bridges. Again, it's a very important aspect here. The bridge has to be sustainable. Not just for our generation, but for the new generations to come. They don't have to live what others lived. To be in Israel, in my last visit, and I'm sorry but in my last visit to Israel, I was so touched in Tel Aviv when I saw the children, like really young children, kids. They don't. The majority of them, they don't speak English, but they saw us, and I was wearing kandura, like the national dress, the Emirati national dress. So they saw me, they were so impressed, so happy, and they were like, "Shalom, shalom, peace." So we were so touched by that, and we need our children to live together, to learn from each other, and not to be scared, not to go and find a bunker because there are missiles or maybe rockets coming from different, from terrorists, I would call them. So no, we need to live in a very happily, environment and embrace coexistence together.
Yeah,
Conrad, I would just say, if I may, that I think real peace, warm peace, and enduring peace is not one that is solely imposed from the top, from the political leadership, but it is one that grows from the bottom up. Our leadership, if you look at peace like a flower, the leadership has a responsibility to plant the seeds, but then it is the people, groups like Sharaka on the ground that are the water that make it blossom and make it flourish. And this is what we are trying to do. If you know the rabbi, Lord Jonathan Sachs, very prominent intellectual and religious authority, who so sadly passed away only recently, he said that tomorrow's world is what we teach our children today. And that is what we are trying to teach all our children today in Israel, in the Gulf, and hopefully throughout, not just the Middle East, but the world, about why peace is so important, why dialogue is so important, why tolerance is so important, why breaking down barriers is so important. And that really, in many ways, is what Sharaka is trying to do, as Majeed has said, to create these bridges and to connect our people on a personal level as well.
Yes.
So, gentlemen, this has been a really inspiring talk, and our viewers will love it. And thanks for all you're doing for your countries and for the of the Middle East. And I actually got an idea when you were talking about Sharaka, that Norwegian government sponsors peace initiatives in the Middle East with tens of thousands of dollars every year. And so if you can set up a grassroots educational program to help Palestinians and Jews to find out of living together I think maybe you will have a chance there.
We are. That's what we are doing, and we will
Yes.
certainly do, and with your support as well, Conrad, and all the fantastic work that MIFF is doing as well.
Okay.
Yes.
All the best. Litraot.
Thank you.
Letraot. Thank you, Conrad.
See you.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you. Take care.
Thanks for listening to this talk that we just finished a couple of hours ago. And I have to correct myself. Some wrong impression I gave in the beginning of the talk. MIFF has hosted several events where we had Arab and Jews together, mostly Arab and Jewish Israelis. MIFF does also have both Jewish, Christian, secular, and Muslim, other religion in our membership role. And we are a non-religious, open for all organization. In the past, I think in the 1980s, I think MIFF even hosted events where the Egyptian ambassador participated. And a couple of months ago, the Moroccan ambassador to Norway gave an interview to me. So the new thing today really was hosting an Arab Emirati and an Israeli in a Zoom talk. I hope you enjoyed it. Remember to check out MIFF's other videos on YouTube and on Facebook. We have a lot of interesting stuff also in English. See you next time. And for you Norwegians and Danes still sticking around, remember to join MIFF as a member. Hjelp oss på vei mot 12 000 medlemmer.
Grunnen til at jeg støtter Israel og er blitt med i MIFF, det er fordi at informasjonen vi får i norsk media er så ensidig. Og vi får ikke fram den hele sannheten om den konflikten som er i området.
Jeg er medlem av MIFF for å prøve å få en bedre forståelse av det reelle bildet av Israel, og hvordan det israelske folk ser på konflikten i Midtøsten, og for å få et litt mer helhetlig bilde av det.
Jo, jeg er medlem av MIFF fordi jeg mener at Israel og jødene har rett til sitt land. Det er givende, og du blir jo ofte utfordret på det, men det som også er utrolig bra med MIFF er at de gjør et veldig godt grunnarbeid med å hente god informasjon, så argumentene er selvfølgelig på vår side. Aldri vært viktigere å stå opp for Israel.
Det er viktig. Det er Midtøstens eneste reelle demokrati.
I Norge er bildet på Israel så forvrengt at den jobben MIFF gjør er helt nødvendig.
Jeg er veldig glad i MIFF og har blitt mer og mer engasjert, og jeg er stolt over det arbeidet MIFF gjør. Jeg synes at MIFF taler til alle, og så er det jo selvfølgelig politisk uavhengig og religiøst uavhengig, så MIFF favner jo bredt.
Det var jo egentlig bestefar som begynte med det, siden han syntes det var så fælt hvordan Norge behandlet jøder under andre verdenskrig. Så jeg støtter vel egentlig, for jeg føler det blir så feil fremstilt i media i Norge.
Det gir et fellesskap og et tankefellesskap og et sosialt fellesskap, der du kan få utforske situasjonen på nye måter, og du kan få inn perspektiver og holdninger, og gjerne se ting som du ikke ser så mange andre veier. Og du får, etter min mening, et mer helhetlig syn på konflikten.
Til alle dere unge der ute som har lurt på det, så er det bare å melde seg inn.